if you're treating it transactionally, then now I feel like it's transactional. Whereas, you know, because the answer is always, right? And it's hard to accept. But if a man is doing something for you, he wants to. He enjoys doing it. You know, we love to serve.
And what you just said, that it feels hurtful when you did something nice for somebody and then they're like, well, don't do that, or I didn't ask you to do it. I understand that. But I also see where like the tables were turned and I was like, well, I do all this for you. I do all this for you. You would understand where I'm coming from, but you'd also probably be like, does she want to do these things? I think it's more beneficial to talk about the underlying need and what is lacking rather than talk about all the things that I've already done to try to prove something, if that makes sense. Because like even the example where you wake up early and you bring me coffee, right? Like I get that you were trying to prove a point. And I understand your perspective of it and that, you know, you didn't feel like I gave you the appreciation that you would like to feel. But also I was like, I wake up and I give you a kiss and a hug every morning. And then you're like, oh yeah, you do that. And so like, I feel like just using those examples sometimes, they're not beneficial in the way that you think they are. And even at the end of our conversation, I told you to like, tell me one way that I support you that you liked, and then tell me, but I would like support in other ways, or I'm not feeling fully supported though. And I feel like that is very needed when a man is talking to how he wants to be supported by his woman, because it doesn't look the same for everybody. Like in some degrees, yes, like, but it's also confusing because I do thank you when you bring me coffee and I feel like, okay, maybe that's enough, but it wasn't enough. You know what I mean? And so that's fine. And you're valid for feeling that, but I also need to know what like more would you want? And it doesn't have to be like in that exact instance, but it needs to be clarified because it is confusing. And like I said, it's not the same for everybody. Like you said with the love languages thing, it's like, how do you feel best supported? And there are things that a woman can do that is universal, like showing her appreciation by saying thank you every time, or, you know, if that's not enough, then, you know, making him coffee sometimes. Or there are things, like I'm not saying that there aren't ways to come up with things, but I feel like you do have to, especially if you're expressing that your needs aren't being met, you can't just be like, well, you figure it out. And I get why you want to say that because you want it to be genuine. But at the same time, if you're a team, you want to be working together, right? Like, just like you're working to provide for the family and you want her to join in on that by supporting you, it's a team effort.
Right.
And so, and even if it's like a woman's needs aren't being met, she has to bring it to her husband in a way that's like, I appreciate you doing this for me, but I'm lacking this or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it still has to be done in the right way because it is a confusing thing, right? And even though it's about the person talking, and our situation was complicated because you asked me what was wrong and I started saying things and then none of that got resolved and then this new thing came up, right? And I've already talked about that. That's hard for me to, especially hard for me to empathize when I still have these problems and now they feel even more pushed under the rug. And so now I'm supposed to sit and listen to someone talk about something when my feelings got discarded. But needless to say with that, like each person is valid in what they feel.
Right.
But at the same time, I do feel like you're responsible for how you express it and what is the best way. And I didn't do it the best way when I brought you my issues, and I acknowledge that. But after having the conversation, I know that how important that is and how important it is to be vulnerable and come from that place, and that it's okay to appear needy and things like that. But at the same time, I do feel like it is important to try to pay attention as much as you can to what you're saying and how you're approaching your partner, because those things do matter. Especially, like I said, to a woman, she doesn't want to feel like, you know, these things are being held against her, and like, should I ask him to not bring me coffee anymore? Like, because is he gonna say, like, and I'm not saying say that in the moment. But even after that, though, it does make a woman feel like, is he bothered by this thing or
no?
What?
Never. He's never bothered by it. That's the answer. That's what I'm trying to get at, is that the answer is no. He's never bothered by it. He's doing things for you because he wants to do them for you. And he just wants to be acknowledged for it. He doesn't even need more thank yous. He just wants you in the moment to acknowledge it. That's the thing, is to say, oh, I love when you do that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It also is the counter to feeling like someone. So for example, even if we use that example where I said, oh, if someone gives you some candy and then hands you a bill, you know, when they hand you the bill, you could say, oh, wow, I thank you for giving me that candy. I really like the candy. Right? It's like they don't have anything to say to that. Like your acknowledgement of it. It's like if you're like, oh, let me give you back the candy. It was a gift, right? And if you acknowledge a gift, then you take away the obligation part of it. It's just, I think when gifts are not acknowledged, that's when someone feels like now they're owed something, because it's like, I did this for you out of the kindness of my heart. If you're treating it transactionally, then now I feel like it's transactional. Whereas, you know, because the answer is always, right? And it's hard to accept. But if a man is doing something for you, he wants to. He enjoys doing it. You know, we love to serve. We love to serve our wives, to serve our
good
our women.
Men do.
Well, let's only talk about, I mean, in every man's heart of hearts, though, that is the truth. Like because this is how men are built, right? Masculine wants to support, wants to provide, wants to, you know, and so that's what it really comes down to. So the answer is never to be like, oh, you don't have to do that for me. Probably the worst thing that you could ever say to a man, one of the worst things is, oh, don't do that for me, or you don't have to do that for me, or I didn't ask you to do that for me. Those are like daggers in the heart, because as a man, I get my sense of self, like in a relationship, sense of worth and so for how much I'm providing for the people that depend on me. And when a person says, oh, I don't need you to do that for me, or you shouldn't have done that, or I didn't ask you to do that, it's like, you don't matter. Like all your efforts are worthless. You know, like I don't care about your efforts, because that's so that's kind of the thing behind it, is that it's just important to realize that you don't have, like, every gift that a man ever gives you in a relationship, he wants to give it to you, and there's no. You know,
I mean, I understand. I feel like, though, it is confusing when people use examples, though, and it does make it confusing. That's why I think that it does matter, and that the better thing would probably be to just talk about what you're lacking, and that you need more support or you need more desire, rather than using examples to try to make somebody like understand, because it can be confusing. And I understand what you just said, that it feels hurtful when you did something nice for somebody and then they're like, well, don't do that, or I didn't ask you to do it. I understand that. But I also see where if like the tables were turned and I was like, well, I do all this for you, I do all this for you, you would understand where I'm coming from, but you'd also probably be like, does she want to do these things, or are they just like, you know, like, it's just, I don't feel like it's a good way for anybody to prove their point, because what the actual point is that you're not feeling supported.
Well, I think the point can be, this is how much I love you.
Yeah, but I think that you can express that in a way that isn't all of these tasks that you did.
I mean, it can be demonstrated by the things that you do, like in the things that I think that's still valid. Like, why wouldn't you?
I disagree. I will agree to disagree, but I think it's just, it puts somebody in a confusing position, is what I'm saying.
Not if you have to point something out, because it's, you know, it needs to be understood. I think that there are times where that's important, right? Because
I mean, I just feel like I'm able to convey to you without. The only time I feel like I bring stuff up is if I'm in a defensive mode. But whenever I'm talking about something that's bothering me with you, I don't feel like I need to bring things up like that, because I personally don't think it's beneficial. I think it's more beneficial to talk about the underlying need and what is lacking, rather than talk about all the things that I've already done to try to prove something, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think that it is important to say what has happened, to because a lot of things are not seen, are not acknowledged, right? And I think that it's perfectly valid to say, like, for example, a lot of women are in the opposite position where, hey, they work a job, they cook, they clean, they take care of the kids, they're doing all the stuff. The guy, he's working a job, but then he's watching TV or playing video games, right? So it's perfectly valid for a woman in that circumstance to go to the guy and say, hey, look, I am working a job just like you. I am cooking. I do your laundry. I take care of the kids. I do all this stuff, right? This is how I'm showing up and showing that I care about you and I love you in this relationship. And so, like, I would appreciate some acknowledgement for those things.
I
right?
hear what you're saying. I literally feel like no man ever has an epiphany when a woman says that stuff, to be honest. And that's what I'm trying to say. It just makes a man and whoever is in that situation defensive. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because everything you just said,
right?
I know exactly how that would play out if I was in a room with people talking like that. And the man would be like, I go to work every day and I take out the trash and I do this. It doesn't turn into, oh, wow, she does. It should. I'm not saying that you're wrong, that it should make a man be like, oh, she is doing all this stuff. I really appreciate that. But that isn't how it normally turns out. It normally becomes the time that now he's going to talk about all the things that he does. That's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not wrong.
Well,
I'm not saying it's
but
wrong.
That's the roles. That's where the roles come in, right? Is because, see, a man does all of these things to support the family. He goes to work. Maybe he wakes up early in the morning. He does all these things. A woman can't compare herself to those things, right? And the man shouldn't be trying to compare a woman to those things, right? It's what he puts in. It's what she puts in. Right, he puts in the protection, the providing, that the protecting from the stress, handling the stresses of the world. She puts in the nurturing and the support,
right? Which is why I think that